Sputnik 1. The Dawn of the Space Age. Narration. It was the evening of October 4th, 1957. In the vast and silent steppe of Baikonur Cosmodrome, deep in the Kazakh desert, a small group of Soviet scientists gathered under the fading orange light of dusk. Their faces were tense, illuminated by the soft glow of instruments and the cold metallic body of a sphere that would soon change the destiny of humankind. That sphere, only 58 centimeters in diameter and weighing 83 kilograms, carried no human, no camera, no weapon. Yet, it carried something far greater, the proof that humanity could reach beyond Earth. Chapter 1. Shadows of the Cold War. The world of 1957 was split in two. On one side, the United States of America, proud and confident after World War II. On the other, the Soviet Union, secretive, wounded, but fiercely ambitious. Each nation sought dominance, not only on Earth, but in the skies above it. The Cold War was not fought with armies alone. It was a battle of science, ideology, and imagination. In Moscow, a man known to few but feared by many walked silently through the corridors of power. His name was Sergei Korolev, the chief designer. His identity was classified. His name never appeared in newspapers. Yet, he was the architect of the Soviet dream, the dream of conquering space. Korolev had survived Stalin's prisons, Siberian camps, and the political purges that consumed thousands of scientists. But now, in the 1950s, he commanded an army of engineers, mathematicians, and dreamers, working under the shroud of secrecy in hidden facilities across the USSR. Their mission: build a rocket capable of launching an artificial satellite into orbit before the Americans could. Chapter 2. The Birth of an Idea. The idea for Sputnik, companion or satellite in Russian, was simple, yet revolutionary. A metal sphere containing a radio transmitter powered by silver-zinc batteries, two radio frequencies, 20.005 and 40.002 MHz, four long whip antennas extending outward like insect legs. It was designed not for war, but for proof that Soviet science could do what the world thought impossible. In the spring of 1957, as engineers worked day and night, tension built inside the Kremlin. American newspapers were filled with promises that the United States would soon launch the first satellite. But behind the Iron Curtain, Korolev and his team were already weeks ahead. Every bolt, every circuit, every weld on the sphere was checked by trembling hands. They knew the stakes. Success would mean glory. Failure would mean disgrace, possibly death. Chapter 3. The Rocket Rises. The launch vehicle, the R-7 Semyorka, was originally designed as an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of delivering nuclear warheads. Now, its purpose was transformed. Not destruction, but discovery. At Site Number 1 in Baikonur, the rocket towered 30 meters high, painted silver gray, steam rising from its liquid oxygen tanks. In the control bunker, engineers monitored hundreds of dials and switches. The countdown began. Pusk v Poryak. Launch in progress. A low rumble filled the air, growing into a thunderous roar as the rocket engines ignited. Flames erupted beneath the launch pad, and the R-7 slowly lifted, as if defying gravity itself. At 22:28 Moscow time, the world entered a new era. Chapter 4. The beep heard around the world. Minutes later, Soviet ground control confirmed success. Sputnik had reached orbit. Its radio signal, a simple beep-beep, beep-beep, echoed through shortwave radios across the globe. Each pulse was a heartbeat of a new age, the space age. In the United States, amateur radio operators captured the signal and listened in awe. Children stared at the night sky, searching for a faint moving star, the first man-made object ever to orbit Earth. American newspapers called it the Red Moon. For the first time, humanity was no longer bound to its planet. Chapter 5. Panic and Pride. When news reached Washington, D.C., panic spread through the corridors of power. If the Soviets could launch a satellite into space, They could also launch nuclear missiles across continents. President Dwight D. Eisenhower tried to remain calm, but the American public demanded answers. Congress held hearings. Military leaders called for action. Editorials screamed, "The Soviets have won the race to space." In Moscow, however, the mood was triumphant. Soviet citizens gathered in Red Square, waving flags and portraits of Nikita Khrushchev. Korolev's name remained secret, but his work was celebrated as a victory for socialism. The tiny satellite had become a symbol of political power and scientific supremacy. Chapter 6. The World Looks Up. Around the world, people began to imagine a future among the stars. Science fiction turned into science fact. Teachers spoke of space travel, engineers dreamed of moon landings, and children drew rockets in their notebooks. The Sputnik shock inspired generations. In the United States, it led directly to the creation of NASA in 1958. In classrooms, the push for science and mathematics education intensified. Space had become the new battlefield, not of destruction, but of progress. Chapter 7. Inside the Soviet Program. While the world watched the stars, the Soviets worked in silence. Korolev was already planning Sputnik 2, which would carry a living passenger, Laika, the dog. But behind the celebrations, conditions were harsh. Baikonur was a frozen wasteland. Engineers lived in barracks, often without heat or running water. They worked for glory, not comfort, and for many, not even recognition. Every night, under the endless steppe sky, they could hear the faint pulse of Sputnik passing overhead. It was both a triumph and a reminder that their work had only just begun. Chapter 8. The Legacy of a Beep. For just 21 days, Sputnik transmitted its signal before its batteries failed. 3 months later, it burned up upon re-entering Earth's atmosphere. But by then, it had already changed the course of human history. It had shown that humankind could leave its cradle, that a world divided by fear could still share a single moment of wonder, looking up at the same tiny light moving silently across the night sky. Chapter 9. The Human Spirit. Behind the machinery and politics, Sputnik's story is one of human perseverance, of scientists who dared to dream beyond the limits of their time, of engineers who built miracles with slide rules and sweat, and of one man, Sergei Korolev, who believed that Earth was only the beginning. He never saw his name celebrated during his lifetime. He died in 1966, buried under a plain gravestone in Moscow. But his legacy lives on in every rocket, every satellite, every mission that ventures into the unknown. Chapter 10. Echoes in the Cosmos. Today, more than half a century later, we live in a world surrounded by satellites for communication, weather, navigation, and science. Yet, it all began with that small metal sphere launched on a cold October night. Each time a rocket rises into the sky, it carries the same spirit that lifted Sputnik 1, the spirit of exploration, curiosity, and courage. Humanity's first step into space began not with a human voice, but with a simple beep echoing through the stars.